Hello dear students, welcome back to EDUHUNT video lecture series, and we have been discussing about the angiosperm life cycle. And a plant life cycle has two different phases. One is the gametophytic phase, which is a haploid phase, and the second one is the sporophytic phase, which is a diploid one. So both the phases alternate with each other. So this is called the alternation of generation, and by alternating these two phases in the life cycle, they complete their life cycle with these two phases. And some of the phases like gametophytic phase is short in angiosperms, but the dominant phase of the life cycle is said to be sporophytic phase, which is a diploid one. Let us see the diagrammatic representation of life history of an angiosperm plant. We have discussed how an angiosperm plant reproduces sexually. That is the through flower. Flower consists of sex organs, androecium, the male sex organ, and the gynoecium, which is a female sex organ. Androecium and gynoecium, both these sex organs, they release gametes which belong to haplontic phase, that is the gametophytic phase. After fusion, that is fertilization, they form a zygote, which is the starting cell of the sporophytic phase, diploid phase. Let us see the mature flowering plant which bears flowers, and each flower has androecium and gynoecium, as I mentioned earlier. The androecium consists of the stamens which give rise to microspores. Stamens, and previously while discussing about gymnosperms, we have seen microsporophylls and megasporophylls. Microsporophylls is the male sporophylls, and these microsporophylls, when they aggregate around the central axis, they form a cone. This has been discussed while discussing about the general characters of gymnosperms. But here they are not organized into a cone, but the microsporophyll is transformed into the stamen. The one thing that you should be remembered is microsporophyll that is present in the gymnosperm is similar to the stamen of angiosperm. So microsporophyll is equal to the angiosperm's stamen. So angiosperm stamen is equal to microsporophyll of gymnosperm or the pteridophyte. And the ovaries. Ovaries are the female reproductive organs, female reproductive structures, and these ovaries are considered to be the megasporophylls of gymnosperms, which have been evolved into ovaries, where gymnosperms lack ovaries. Because of absence of ovaries, they could not produce the fruits. That is why the ovules, the seeds, are naked, they are exposed out. That is why we placed them in gymnosperms and we call them as gymnosperms. Here ovaries are present, which are similar to megasporophylls, and pollen sacs are produced in the stamens, especially in the anthers of the stamens, they produce the pollen sacs, and the pollen sacs are similar to microsporangia. And the microsporangia, they produce microspore mother cells or microsporogenous tissue, or the group of microsporangial cells called the pollen sacs, and they after modifications, after development, they form the pollen mother cell, undergo meiosis, produce haploid pollen grains, and these pollen grains, they have a vegetative nucleus and a generative nucleus, which on further division will give rise to two male gametes, which are also haploid. Ikkada pollen grains form అవ్వాలంటే meiosis జరగాలి, but male gametes form అయ్యేటప్పుడు meiosis కాదు, it's a mitosis. This is an important point. ఇదంతా అందరికీ తెలుస్తుంది, but the male gametes are produced from the generative cell of the pollen grain are formed by which division? Meiosis or mitosis or both? Like that they ask. They are developed or they are formed by the mitotic division of the vegetative cell. ఇక్కడ క్లియర్గా చెప్తున్నారు, వెజిటేటివ్ సెల్ నుంచి మేల్ గెమిట్స్ ఫామ్ అవ్వాలంటే. అలా కాకుండా మైక్రోస్పోర్ మదర్ సెల్ నుంచి మేల్ గెమిట్ ప్రొడ్యూస్ అవ్వాలంటే ఏ డివిజన్ జరగాలి? సో ఇఫ్ they give rise to, if they want to produce male gametes, the microspore mother cell, which is a diploid one, has to undergo one reductional division, that is meiosis. After undergoing meiosis, it gives rise to, it will yield 4 haploid microspores, which we call them as pollen grains, and each pollen grain on further mitotic division produce vegetative nucleus and a generative nucleus, and the generative cell, the nucleus, divide once again mitotically to produce 2 male gametes. This is a very important point. So mitosis, meiosis ఎప్పుడు ఏ స్టేజ్లో జరుగుతుందనేది it is very very important. And the first male gamete will fuse with the egg cell of the egg apparatus. అలాగే ఇక్కడ ఎలా అయితే మేల్ సైడ్ డెవలప్ అయిందో, ఫీమేల్ సైడ్ the ovule with integument is the covering of the ovule, and the tissue of the ovule is called nucellus, and this ovule in the nucellus they produce a megasporangium, that is called the megasporangium, and the megasporangium, that is the ovule, integumented ovule, the covering enveloped ovule is called the megasporangium. Enveloped megasporangium is called the ovule, and the cell deep in the nucellus, that is ovule tissue, will differentiate into a megaspore mother cell, which is a diploid one, and this undergoes meiosis, produce the embryo sac, and all the cells except the secondary nucleus, all the cells of the embryo sac are, all the nuclei of the embryo sac or all the cells of the embryo sac are haploid except the secondary cell or the central cell, because the central cell is the resultant of the fusion of 2 polar nuclei. And this the micropylar region possesses 3 cells. One is the egg cell, which is situated at the center of the micropylar region, and the 2 adjacent cells are called the synergid cells, and synergids have finger-like projections in them. The finger-like projections is called the filiform apparatus. This helps this guides the developing pollen tube. They direct the filiform apparatus directs the pollen tube towards the egg cell. The pollen tube ruptures one of the synergids to reach the egg cell, because egg cell is very, very important because the fusion occurs with the egg cell only, the nucleus of the egg cell only. This male gamete will fuses with the egg nucleus. It is a very important point. Double fertilization occurs, that is triple fusion, and after formation of all these things, the embryo will be produced, and it has two layers. The embryo, that is the seed, has two layers, testa and tegmen. Testa, that is the seed coat. Testa and tegmen are the two covers of the seed, two layers of the seed, testa and tegmen. After seed dispersal, it germinates on suitable substratum and will give rise to the mature plant. This is about the schematic and diagrammatic representation of life history of an angiospermic plant. And plant life cycle and alternation of generation. What is an alternation of generation? Alternation of generation is nothing but occurrence of two phases, that is gametophytic and sporophytic phase in the life cycle alternatively, one after the other. First, the sporophytic phase starts life cycle, the plant starts life cycle with the sporophytic phase, that is after fusion, zygote with the single cell, it undergoes mitotic division and produces the embryo, and after this embryo it differentiates into different organs, and these organs will grow, that is root, stem, leaves, and after maturation produce the flowers, and flowers bear sex organs, and the sex organs undergo the sex cells, that is the mother cells, undergo meiotic division. After meiotic division, they will give rise to the gametophytic generation. And once again, these gametophytic generations, these gametophytic phases will produce the gametes, and these gametes undergo fusion. Like that, in life cycle, the two things occur. One is the fusion, that is fertilization, that forms the diploid phase, that is the sporophytic phase, and sporophytic phase undergoes meiosis to form the haploid phase, that is the gametophytic phase. In plants, both haploid and diploid cells can divide by mitosis, but only the only meiosis occurs only in the diploid cells, not in the haploid cells. Haploid cells and diploid cells both undergo mitosis. Mitosis may be seen in both the cells, but meiosis is seen only in the diploid cells. And the haploid plant body produces gametes by mitosis, and gametes, formation of gametes by mitosis, and this plant body represents a gametophyte following fertilization. The zygote also divide by mitosis to produce diploid sporophytic plant body, and haploid spores are produced by this plant body by meiosis. The spores are produced. Spores are nothing but microspores and megaspores. Spores are nothing but the products of meiosis. Mother cells. Mother cells undergo meiosis. Only once in its life cycle undergoes meiosis. Only once in its life cycle undergo fusion, fertilization. But the mitosis, always majority of the divisions in the life cycle are mitosis only. Only meiosis occurs in the mother cells, microspore mother cell or the megaspore mother cell, which undergoes meiotic division to form the products, that is spores. Microspore, that is male, we can say male gametophyte, and megaspore, which is a female gametophyte, which on further division it produces the female gametophyte called the embryo sac in female side. These in turn divide by mitosis to form the haploid plant body once again. And thus life cycle of any sexually reproducing plant will have morphologically two different phases called the gametophyte and the diploid sporophyte. Haploid gametophyte and the diploid sporophyte regularly alternate with each other. And life cycles of different plant groups have different types of life cycle. Depending on the dominant phase, we divide them into haplontic life cycle. Haplontic means haplo, that is haploid phase, that is N phase. Only single set of chromosomes are present in the nucleus of the plant body. There is single dominant vegetative phase, that is haploid gametophyte. It is a free living plant body. And photosynthetic phase, it produces gametes that are fused to form zygote. Okay. Meiosis is the zygote undergoes meiosis. In angiosperms, we have seen that the zygote undergoes mitosis to produce the embryo, and all the divisions in the life cycle except in the mother cell, all the remaining divisions are mitosis only. Majority of the divisions are mitosis, but only single division meiosis occurs only during formation of the spores. Whether it is a megaspore or a microspore, the mother cell undergoes meiosis. But in case of some plants, we can say that primitive plants, they have haploid life cycle, haploid phase as dominant phase in the life cycle. The haploid phase is called the gametophytic phase. We have seen that kind of dominating phase in bryophytes, even in algae, fungi, bryophyta. Up to bryophyta, the dominant phase of the life cycle is gametophyte, which is a haploid phase. Once again, after fusion of the gametes, the gametophyte reproduces sexually. I'll mention it. The two phases of the life cycle are consists of two phases: gametophyte and the sporophyte. Because many of the students get confusion between these two phases. That's why I'm explaining in detail. Gametophyte is a haploid phase and sporophyte is a diploid phase. Gametophyte undergoes sexual reproduction. In lower forms, I'm saying in lower forms, lower plant forms or plants. Gametophyte undergoes sexual reproduction, and this sexual reproduction, during sexual reproduction, they produce male and female gametes. Male and female gametes. These two gametes fuse to form, this is called the fertilization. This forms the zygote, which is a haploid phase. And this haploid, this is not a haploid one, it is a diploid phase, zygote. It is a diploid phase, and this diploid phase immediately sometimes undergo reduction division. That means zygote, the sporophytic phase, diploid phase is very, very short-lived. But the dominating phase is the gametophyte. It is a free-living form, free-living phase, free-living and photosynthetic phase. Free-living photosynthetic phase, gametophytic phase. Okay? this is the zygote. I'll show you in a different color. Zygote, which is a diploid phase, undergoes very short-lived and undergoes meiotic division to produce zygote undergoes meiotic division to produce the what we call gametophyte. Sometimes the zygote undergoes mitotic division to produce a sporophyte. It bears foot seta capsule, and the capsule, in the capsule, it undergoes the mother cell spore. Mother cells undergo meiotic division to produce the spores, and these spores on dispersal, after dispersal, they reach the suitable substratum and germinate and give rise to the gametophyte. Spores give rise to the gametophyte, and gametophyte will give the gametes, and they on fusion produce the sporophyte. But in case it undergoes, like in algae and even in fungi, zygote immediately undergoes meiosis, and meiotic spores, meiospores are present, they will be produced, and these meiospores germinate and give rise to the gametophyte, which is a very in haplontic life cycle. Most of the life cycle, most of the time in the life cycle, they spend in gametophytic haploid phase. Zygote phase, that is diploid phase, is very short-lived. That is why the kind of life cycle is said to be haplontic life cycle. The life cycle found in algae, like in Chlamydomonas, volvox, Eulothrix, Spirogyra, the haploid life cycle, haplontic, we say, haplontic life cycle is seen, and diploid cells are very, 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 very short-lived. That is, zygote is short-lived. Life cycle of any sexually reproducing plant body consists of two morphological phases, haploid and diploid. We have seen that. In haplontic life cycle, the dominant phase is the haploid gametophytic phase. That is why haplontic life cycle, we have mentioned it as haplontic life cycle. Examples of haplontic life cycle are Chlamydomonas, volvox, Eulothrix, and Spirogyra. These are, don't forget that, these are algae, algal forms. In algae, what kind of life cycle is seen in algae? That is haplontic life cycle. In the next class, we'll see what is a diplontic life cycle. haplontic life cycle లో హ్యాప్లాయిడ్ ఫేజ్ గ్యామెటోఫిటిక్ ఫేజ్ డామినెంట్ అని తెలుసుకోవాలి. అండ్ ఎప్పుడు కూడా హ్యాప్లాయిడ్ సెల్స్ దే నెవర్ అండర్గో రిడక్షన్ డివిజన్. మరి హ్యాప్లాయిడ్ సెల్స్ నుంచి నెక్స్ట్ ఫేజ్ రావాలంటే, అంటే స్పోరోఫిటిక్ ఫేజ్ రావాలంటే, డిప్లాయిడ్ ఫేజ్ రావాలంటే ఏమవ్వాలి? హ్యాప్లాయిడ్ ఫేజ్ అంటే ఓన్లీ సింగిల్ సెట్ ఆఫ్ క్రోమోజోమ్స్ ఆర్ దేర్. ఇప్పుడు డిప్లాయిడ్ ఉంటేనే, అంటే డబుల్ సెట్, 2 sets రావాలి అంటే ఇట్ హ్యాస్ టు take or it has to fuse with the cell which have another set. So fusion between 2 such cells occur. That is called fertilization. On fertilization, they produce the zygote, which is a diploid one, diploid cell, diploid structure, diploid phase, sporophytic phase అనేది వస్తుంది. సో స్పోరోఫిటిక్ ఫేజ్ వచ్చిన వెంటనే మళ్ళీ గ్యామెటోఫిటిక్, అది మియోసిస్ జరగడం వల్ల మళ్ళీ గ్యామెటోఫిటిక్ ఫేజ్ వస్తుంది. సో హ్యాప్లాయిడ్ ఫేజ్ ఎనీవే ఈజ్ ద డామినెంట్ ఫేజ్ ఇన్ algae, fungi and even bryophyta. గుర్తుపెట్టుకోండి, హ్యాప్లాంటిక్ లైఫ్ సైకిల్ ఈజ్ సీన్ ఇన్ algae ఎస్పెషల్లీ. ఇక్కడ నేను బ్రయోఫైటా ఎందుకు రాయట్లేదంటే హ్యాప్లో డిప్లాంటిక్, బట్ ఇక్కడ మనం జైగోట్ ఫామ్ అవ్వగానే మియోసిస్ జరుగుతుంది. బట్ ఇన్ కేస్ ఆఫ్ బ్రయోఫైటా జైగోట్ తర్వాత కూడా జైగోట్ మైటోటిక్ డివిజన్ జరిపి ఫుట్ సీటా క్యాప్స్యూల్ ఇస్తుంది. క్యాప్స్యూల్లో మళ్ళీ మియోసిస్ జరుగుతుంది. మియోసిస్ జరిగిన తర్వాత స్పోర్స్ వస్తాయి. ఆ స్పోర్స్ డిస్పర్సల్ అయిన తర్వాత అవి జర్మినేట్ అయిన తర్వాత గ్యామెటోఫిటిక్ ఫేజ్ వస్తుంది. అంటే స్పోర్ ఈజ్ ద ఫస్ట్ సెల్ ఆఫ్ ద గ్యామెటోఫిటిక్ ఫేజ్ అండ్ జైగోట్ ఈజ్ ద ఫస్ట్ సెల్ ఆఫ్ ద స్పోరోఫిటిక్ ఫేజ్. అంటే ఈ రెండు ఫేజ్లకి మధ్య చాలా డిఫరెన్స్ ఉంది. బట్ ద మెజారిటీ ఆఫ్ ద లైఫ్ సైకిల్ స్పెండ్స్ ఇన్ హ్యాప్లాంటిక్ ఫేజ్, హ్యాప్లాయిడ్ గ్యామెటోఫిటిక్ ఫేజ్. అందుకని హ్యాప్లో డిప్లాంటిక్ అన్నాము, ఆ తర్వాత చూద్దాము. బట్ ఇన్ ఆల్గే ద లైఫ్ సైకిల్ ఈజ్ హ్యాప్లాంటిక్ ఫేజ్ బికాజ్ హ్యాప్లాయిడ్ ఫేజ్లోనే, గ్యామెటోఫిటిక్ ఫేజ్లోనే అవి స్పెండ్ చేస్తాయి కాబట్టి. నెక్స్ట్ టైప్ ఆఫ్ లైఫ్ సైకిల్ మనం నెక్స్ట్ క్లాస్లో చూద్దాం. గుడ్ బై.